ultimately the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit. And then eventually just deal with the fact that Anthony Joshua is going to connect with a bomb and breaks his jaw in 2 places.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan has absolutely lost his mind in the most dramatic way possible after these shocking claims surfaced that Jake Paul was questioned by authorities following his brutal knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. And I mean, this situation is getting completely out of control. And what Rogan said about jail time has left the entire boxing community completely divided right down the middle, with people taking sides in ways we've never seen before. The UFC commentator didn't hold back whatsoever, and I'm talking zero filter here, with people who heard the podcast claiming he went on one of the most intense rants in his show's history about how Jake Paul has completely destroyed boxing and should face serious consequences. We're not talking about mild criticism here. This was a full-blown explosion of raw emotion and anger that caught everyone off guard.
Alcoholics, you could only take so much. Like that one that he got from Joshua, there was a lot of concussions in that one punch. That was real damage. Like if someone's breaking your jaw in 2 places, the inside of your fucking head that's gonna get you. Because at a certain point in time, the price you pay is eventually not worth it.
He didn't only call out Jake Paul for ruining the sport, which would have been controversial enough on its own. He also said that if any of these accusations turn out to be true, the YouTuber turned boxer deserves to rot behind bars for what he's done to a sport that's been around for over a century, which is an absolutely massive statement from someone as influential as Rogan. It all started when rumors began circulating through boxing circles that investigators were looking into suspicious circumstances surrounding the December 19th fight in Miami between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, and these weren't just casual whispers either. According to insiders who were present during the recording, Rogan's reaction was so explosive and intense that even his own production team was shocked by the level of raw emotion and anger he displayed when discussing the situation on air. He should rot in jail for what he's done to boxing, and this isn't just about one fight anymore. This is about destroying an entire sport that generations of athletes have built their lives around. Sources claim, Rogan stated during the podcast recording, that sent shockwaves through combat sports media and had people in the boxing world absolutely buzzing with controversy.
There's maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 Anthony Joshuas that can punch, that can avoid punches, that know what they're doing in the ring. So Jake will struggle at top level, but he has a place in boxing if he wants to stay, in my opinion. So credit to him and his team for getting him this far.
Despite Jake Paul's team threatening lawsuits against anyone making these accusations, which they've been doing aggressively across social media and through legal channels, the next step in this controversy seems completely unknown and uncertain. Hence, it isn't clear how soon authorities might take action or whether this whole situation will blow over like so many other boxing controversies have in the past. However, Rogan's explosive comments came as a direct response to boxing promoter Lou DiBella, who made a video that went viral questioning whether Anthony Joshua gave his full effort against Jake Paul, which opened up this whole can of worms. This wasn't a real fight, and I mean that in the most serious way possible. Joshua was pulling punches, he wasn't giving it his full effort, and something wasn't right about this whole thing from the opening bell. DiBella stated in his social media post that immediately went viral across boxing platforms and got millions of views within hours, sparking this massive controversy that's now consuming the entire sport.
When people question, whether fights like this are quote-unquote real, like Deontay Wilder said something, what's the simplest answer you give them?
I give them a cease and desist letter in their email for lying on my name, and then the lawsuit's coming right after because these people won't stop lying.
Though Jake Paul's team has denied everything and threatened legal action against anyone who continues spreading these accusations, the brutal knockout he suffered shows he definitely got hit with full power when Anthony Joshua landed that devastating right hand that shattered his jaw. Shockingly, Joe Rogan was one of those who actually defended Jake Paul before the fight, saying he had guts for stepping up to face such a dangerous opponent like Anthony Joshua, and in just the blink of an eye, he's now suggesting potential jail time, which shows how dramatically the situation has changed, and how serious these accusations have become in the eyes of one of combat sports' most influential voices.
This was supposed to be Anthony's payout, but he's not seeing a dime. Anthony doesn't get the money anymore because he broke the rules. Simple as that. You break the code, you lose the purse. We're moving on.
Joe Rogan had praised Jake Paul in a previous podcast, where he told his audience that Paul deserved respect for taking such a dangerous fight against a real heavyweight champion, which at the time seemed like a perfectly reasonable take. This is one of the craziest propositions of all time, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. You take a guy who just fought a 58-year-old Mike Tyson in what was basically an exhibition, and then you're gonna fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. That's legitimately insane, Rogan said before the fight with genuine admiration in his voice. He continued, emphasizing the danger Paul was walking into, with his eyes wide open. That right hand, if it hits you, you're done. Like completely unconscious. Lights out. This is a giant Olympic gold medalist heavyweight with one-punch nuclear power that can end your night in a split second. He's a specialist at putting knuckles through your brain, and that's not hyperbole. That's just the reality of fighting someone like Anthony Joshua. Rogan added his final warning before fight night, trying to make people understand the magnitude of what Paul was attempting. He's going to be terrifying, and he's going to have a lot to prove to the boxing world. He's going to be very angry that Jake Paul wants to fight him. Like genuinely furious, very upset that this YouTuber wants to step in with him and thinks he belongs in the same ring. Rogan predicted with accuracy that would prove prophetic.
Throughout all those fights, you know, but it's still like when you fighting like fighters who actually like done it for like their life, their whole life, it's a little different.
Sadly, Rogan's prediction came true in the worst possible way. But now his tune has completely changed after everything that's emerged since the knockout, which shows how serious the situation has become. Not long ago, a dramatic scenario played out when Jake Paul got absolutely destroyed by Anthony Joshua in the 6th round of their fight at the Kaseya Center in Miami, and I mean it was brutal to watch. The two fighters entered the ring with massive expectations from both sides. But what happened shocked everyone who thought Joshua would finish Paul within 2 rounds maximum, or even in the first round like some predicted. Paul's strategy was clear from the beginning of the fight, and honestly, it was his only real option for survival. Survive as long as possible by moving, clenching, and avoiding Joshua's devastating power at all costs, which meant running and holding whenever possible. The fight went differently than experts predicted, with Paul making it to the 6th round before Joshua finally landed the knockout blow that broke his jaw in 2 places, requiring immediate emergency surgery. That moment of impact was absolutely devastating, and you could see Paul's whole body go limp.
Boxing match. Jake Paul had a very healthy fear for his life while he was in there. He was running away. He was trying to get distance. Then he was trying to step in to win this contest. Then he's trying to get out of the way so that he doesn't get hurt again. He was fighting. He's got to go forward. So now he's clenched him. Now he's dropping down to his knees. He's going below the waist. He's getting a double leg position.
Paul was literally fighting for his survival in there, and you could see the fear in his eyes every time Joshua got close. The 28-year-old Paul had employed every survival tactic possible, and I mean he was using everything in the book to stay standing. He was repeatedly falling to the canvas and grabbing onto Joshua's legs whenever the former champion got close enough to land clean shots, which frustrated Joshua but also prolonged the inevitable. A video emerged of the final knockout moment, and people clearly saw Paul's face register pure terror right before Joshua's right hand crashed into his jaw with devastating force that you could hear throughout the arena. The footage showed Paul collapsing to the canvas in a heap as the referee immediately waved off the fight without hesitation, with Joshua celebrating while Paul remained on the ground, spitting blood and completely unconscious. Paul was rushed to Miami University Hospital where he underwent emergency surgery that lasted several hours to repair his shattered jaw with titanium plates, which doctors said was necessary to reconstruct the bone properly. It is clear that the knockout was absolutely real and devastating. There's no question about that whatsoever, which Dave has posted about on social media with the caption, "That's what happens when you step up to real heavyweight power." Respect to both fighters, but that was brutal to witness. He then posted again saying something that resonated with a lot of boxing fans. Jake Paul just found out the difference between fighting old men and fighting a real champion in his prime. And ouch is right, because that had to hurt on multiple levels.
Your brother fought his ass off, man. I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him.
That knockout was absolutely incredible in its brutality and finality. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts for Anthony Joshua and vindication of his championship pedigree. Joshua responded by giving Paul credit in the post-fight interview, saying something that showed real class and sportsmanship. Jake Paul did really well tonight, considering who he was facing. I'm going to give him his props, because he deserves that much. He got up time and time again when most people would have stayed down. It was difficult in there for him, but he kept on trying to find a way to survive and maybe land something. It takes a real man to do that, and I respect that about him. But days later, the controversy exploded when people started questioning why it took Joshua 6 rounds to finish someone he was expected to knock out immediately, which opened up this whole can of worms about fight fixing. Regarding the accusations about the fight being fixed or influenced, Jake Paul's team has tried addressing the issue aggressively through legal threats and public statements. Nikakis Abadarian, co-founder of Most Valuable Promotions, decided to go on the Ariel Helwani show to address the growing controversy and defend Jake Paul's reputation against these serious accusations. Abadarian claimed the accusations were completely ridiculous and that their legal team was ready to take action against anyone spreading false information about the fight. Our lawyers are actively going after a number of people who are making these baseless claims. Abadarian told Helwani during the December 22 interview with clear frustration in his voice. There's never once in Jake Paul's career been any talk of that sort of thing. Not even a whisper. Anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight is completely false and defamatory.
I won 2 rounds.
For sure.
And then he won 2, and then I got dropped. I was doing good. I just think my cardio, just the mental pressure of the big guy and sparring the big people is different than the 10-ounce gloves. So I was feeling his power a lot more. But it was a great experience. Like, I learned a lot in there.
He specifically called out Lou DiBella by name, saying the veteran promoter had made baseless claims that needed to be addressed through legal channels and possibly court action. According to Badarian, Jake Paul has always competed in legitimate fights throughout his entire career, and these accusations were damaging to both Paul's reputation and the entire promotional company they've built. Lou DiBella: I saw him put up a bunch of ridiculous things on social media and even said, Nikisa, go ahead and sue me. But this wasn't a real fight for to him. Joshua was pulling punches, supposedly. He wasn't giving it his full effort, allegedly. Badarian stated with clear frustration and anger in his voice. He also explained why the fight lasted longer than expected, pointing out that Anthony Joshua himself had predicted a first-round knockout in pre-fight interviews, but circumstances in the ring made that impossible to achieve. Anthony Joshua was on record multiple times, saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing and embarrassing. That would be a failure on his part as a former champion. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and people realized Paul might actually survive a few rounds. Badarian explained during the interview, trying to provide context for why the fight went 6 rounds instead of ending immediately.
For everyone wondering about Jake's strategy, most of the people don't know boxing, but I will outline one thing that even like I asked about. So like moving around the outside, to your point, like everyone's saying, oh, he ran the whole time. No, that's boxing. That's what Floyd Mayweather built his career off of. Especially when you're facing a bigger guy who controls the center of the ring. The only way to properly win is stay on your horse, pivot, switch directions, make a miss. Like that's the name of the game. That's elusiveness. That's evasion. That's good.
Recently, Joe Rogan completely changed his perspective after hearing all these accusations and seeing how the boxing community was reacting to the controversy surrounding the fight. Rogan addressed the situation on the Joe Rogan Experience, delivering what many describe as one of his most passionate and emotional commentaries ever recorded about combat sports and fighter safety. It's not worth it for Jake Paul to continue, Rogan said during the podcast episode discussing Jake Paul's future in boxing. There's a price that you pay that is not worth it, and that price is depression, deep depression, a severe brain imbalance that's going to lead you to addiction and potentially worse outcome. The podcast host went even further, explaining the severe damage Paul suffered from Joshua's knockout punch, getting into the medical details that most people don't understand.
Was this fight set up? Was it a fix? Did something go on in this fight? Because how could it have went 6 rounds or 5.5 rounds? Come on, mate. Did you see that video? Watch that video again. It's going to play again after I've spoke. And tell me that that was set up. He got hit clean on the chin.
That one punch that he got from Joshua, say if you have a punch card, you have so many punches that you can get in your life, which I believe you do based on the science. I believe it's a certain number that your brain can handle. That one was like 10 punches worth of damage. That was a lot of concussions compressed into that one punch, which is absolutely terrifying when you think about it. Rogan emphasized with genuine concern for Paul's long-term health and well-being. He continued breaking down the medical reality in terms that everyone could understand. If someone's breaking your jaw in two places with one punch, the inside of your head, there's a lot of damage going on in there too, that we can't see. These statements show Rogan's deep concern for fighter safety, but the boxing community noticed he went even further when discussing the broader implications of what these accusations mean. In the same podcast episode, sources claim Rogan made much stronger statements about potential criminal activity in boxing that have not been widely reported yet by mainstream media. Ellis, a longtime boxing analyst, was more direct in declaring that something needs to change about celebrity boxing and crossover fights before someone gets killed. This whole circus has gone too far, and I mean way too far. When you have YouTubers fighting world champions, and then questions arise about whether everything was legitimate, that's when boxing loses all credibility with serious fans. Ellis stated in a recent interview that got a lot of attention.
Did Jake Paul reached out to you?
Yeah, they reached out to the team. You know what I mean? They reached out to the team.
What'd you think about that AJ fight?
Well, we all knew what was gonna happen.
I thought Jake was gonna win, bro.
Huh?
I did. Dude, Jake won the first 2 rounds.
The sport can't survive if every major fight gets accused of being rigged or influenced by money, and that's just the reality we're facing now. Either clean it up or watch boxing die a slow death, he added, with clear frustration about the current state of the industry and where it's heading. While Rogan made it clear that Jake Paul showed courage by taking the fight, his comments about potential jail time suggest he believes there's more to the story than what's been made public so far. This recent controversy happened just months after Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson in November, which also faced accusations of being a fixed exhibition despite being sanctioned as a professional bout by the Texas Commission. And despite Paul's team doing everything they can to shut down these accusations through legal threats and public denials, it's now clear that the boxing community has serious doubts about the legitimacy of his recent fights and his entire career trajectory.
Respect to Jake, they both made $93 million each, which is an absolutely outrageous sum considering UFC top contenders barely scraped together $1 million a fight. But people carrying on, wow, what a warrior, big respect to Jake. You got to view this like a WWE script. Look at the facial expressions of Logan and Jake. No one is taking this match seriously. It's all for entertainment. People will talk about, wow, but he broke his jaw, you know, big respect to Jake. Yeah.
This was an eventual result of years of suspicion that's been building in the combat sports world since Paul first started his professional boxing career back in 2020, when he fought other YouTubers. The questions first began when Paul exclusively fought MMA fighters with no professional boxing experience whatsoever. Former NBA players who had never boxed professionally, and aging former champions well past their prime fighting years. There were several reasons for the skepticism among hardcore boxing fans, and it's almost common knowledge among boxing fans that Paul has carefully selected opponents to maximize his chances of winning, while generating maximum revenue from casual fans. Though Paul has denied these claims repeatedly through social media and interviews, the pattern of his opponent selection speaks volumes about the careful matchmaking strategy employed by his promotional team over the year. However, things reached a breaking point when Paul stepped up to fight Anthony Joshua, a fight that everyone expected to be completely one-sided in Joshua's favor from the opening bell. The fact that it took 6 full rounds for Joshua to finish Paul has raised more questions than it answered for the boxing community, which expected a first or second round knockout.
Everyone's laughing at Jake Paul when Jake Paul's laughing at everybody else. You know, everyone's making fun of him. He's laughing at us, not we're laughing at him. You know, he's laughed himself to the bank. Even before that fight, you know, he's an unbelievable businessman, which is exactly what he is. To do what he's done, to drag Mike Tyson into the ring.
And then, the brutal knockout in round 6 was supposed to end all the controversy and prove that Paul was in a real fight against real competition at the highest level. Jake Paul absorbed the full force of Anthony Joshua's right hand because there was no way to fake a broken jaw that required emergency surgery with titanium plates to repair the damage. He simply couldn't avoid the inevitable anymore, and Joshua's patience finally paid off when he landed the perfect punch that sent Paul crashing to the canvas, unconscious and unable to continue. It happened during the 6th round, when Anthony Joshua cornered Paul against the ropes and unleashed a devastating right hand that connected flush on the jaw with tremendous force. That was real power, and you can't fake that kind of damage to the human body. You can't fake that kind of damage, period. Paul's jaw was shattered in 2 places. One ringside doctor stated after examining Paul immediately following the knockout, confirming the severity of the injury. This was deemed legitimate by everyone who watched, regardless of the questions about the earlier rounds and how the fight played out.
That is wild. Oh, that was the one. That was the one. Just call it. We don't need to see another. Yeah, good fight. Just made 90 mil. Anthony Joshua got the job done. Jake did good. Jake fought his heart out, pushed past fatigue, showed his heart.
A fan said on social media in a post that got thousands of likes, "Say what you want about the rest of the fight and all the conspiracy theories, but that knockout was 100% real and devastating. Paul got absolutely destroyed and paid the price for stepping up." Another placed the situation in perspective with some humor. If Jake Paul was bribing anyone to go easy on him, he got the worst deal in history because his jaw is completely broken and he's drinking through a straw for Christmas, which is a terrible way to spend the holidays. One condemned the conspiracy theorists seriously and defended Paul's courage for taking the fight. People will never give Jake Paul credit no matter what he does or who he fights. He fought a real champion, got knocked out legitimately, and people still won't shut up about conspiracies and accusations. However, before all these questions became public knowledge, boxing insiders were already whispering about unusual contract clauses and strange negotiations that happened before the fight was signed. The contracts contained specific weight limits, unusual financial terms, and other provisions that seemed designed to give Paul every possible advantage, short of actually rigging the outcome of the fight. Multiple sources confirmed that Anthony Joshua was limited to 245 pounds at the weigh-in, which is unusually light for a natural heavyweight of his size and frame. That weight limit was specifically put in place to help Jake Paul have a better chance. Joshua normally walks around much heavier than that when he's not cutting weight. One boxing insider revealed to media members off the record, speaking anonymously. Even though Joshua agreed to the terms, the restrictions raised eyebrows among people who've been around professional boxing for decades and know how these things work. Joe Rogan specifically mentioned these contract issues during his podcast, suggesting they represented an attempt to manipulate the fight conditions, even if the actual result wasn't predetermined in advance.
I mean, boxing's dangerous, but this is dangerous. And I said, this fight is so big that people will tune in for so many different reasons. Firstly, because they want to see Jake Paul get flattened. Secondly, it's AJ, it's Jake Paul, it's 2 worlds colliding. But thirdly, it is the danger element. I said, this is a bit like tuning in to watch David Blaine.
When you start putting all these weird restrictions and limitations on one fighter to help the other guy, where's the line between smart matchmaking and something more sinister? At what point does it become more than just smart matchmaking and cross over into something that damages the sport? Rogan questioned during the episode with genuine concern in his voice. Regardless of the contractual details, boxing fans keep raising serious questions about Jake Paul's entire career trajectory and what it means for the sport's future and credibility. Back in November, Paul fought Mike Tyson in what was built as a professional bout, but looked more like a controlled sparring session to many observers who watched. That Mike Tyson fight was embarrassing for boxing. And I mean genuinely embarrassing. A 58-year-old man who could barely move was in there with a guy in his prime, and somehow it went the distance without a knockout. Boxing analyst Teddy Atlas stated on his podcast with clear frustration, "I love Mike Tyson, but that shouldn't have been sanctioned by any athletic commission. And now we're supposed to believe everything is legitimate? Come on," Atlas added with clear skepticism about the whole situation. "It's all about being true to the sport, and that's what matters most. You just need to be true to the sport and respect its history. When you're faking it, that's when it's damaging to everyone involved. When you know something isn't right and you continue to do it, that's something very wrong that affects the entire sport." The former champion said about the current state of celebrity boxing and where it's headed. And just after the Joshua fight, Jake Paul went straight to the hospital for jaw surgery, which at least proved that particular punch was devastatingly real, regardless of questions about everything else that happened.
I want to fight Anthony Joshua, exclusive, because I know that I will beat Anthony Joshua. I know I will beat. Knocked out, right? Yeah. He doesn't have a chin, and he has no skill, and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends. All this, but I want to fight you. I will beat Canelo. I will beat a lot of people. I will not beat Dave.
And despite his team doing everything they can to threaten lawsuits and silence critics through legal intimidation, it's now clear that serious doubts will follow Jake Paul for the rest of his boxing career, no matter what he does. Hopefully, authorities will investigate thoroughly if there's any merit to these accusations, and the truth will eventually come out one way or another through proper channels. And that's all for now, but this story is far from over. For the very best updates on news, moments, events, and actions in the world of boxing, stay by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications to get notified when we drop quality contents like this that keep you informed. Until next time, peace out, and thanks for watching.